consistently told Zeppelin. I can't go back, so I'm leaving the band. I can't accomplish all that if I go back to America. Ritchie Blackmore never holds back. And he truly hates a band when he despises them. I wanted control, and he wanted control. We butt heads as a result of that. Among the most gifted and vocal, Blackmore is one of rock history's guitarists. Contributed to creating the hard rock sound and Rainbow and Deep Purple and heavy metal, but in spite of his own notoriety, he has never hesitated to demolish, whether it's their absence, other musicians of technical proficiency above dependence on showmanship, or just Blackmore has discovered a lot of unoriginality. Numerous grounds to disapprove of some of the top bands worldwide. These are the top 5 Ritchie Blackmore's least favorite bands, and the reason he couldn't tolerate by the time the Police reached them become one of the distinguishing rocks. Late 1970s bands, including Ritchie Blackmore, had established himself as one already. Among the best rock guitarists history, as the creator of Deep, the distinctive hard rock sound of Purple, and afterward, Rainbow, Blackmore's leader was a strong supporter of forceful rock with riffs, so when the Police appeared on the scene, fronted by Sting, combining new music with punk reggae wave, Blackmore was anything but. He was so impressed that he detested them. Blackmore's contempt for law enforcement wasn't merely a fleeting thought, it was something he publicly expressed. Especially in a Metal Hammer interview in 1987. He was thinking back at the moment on the Deep Purple reunion in 1984 after a break of 8 years. But some musicians may have been concerned about going back to where the rock scene had evolved. Blackmore was greatly reassured when he noticed what was taking over the airways from his perspective. The Police, as well as the numerous bands attempting to imitate them, was evidence that rock music had become less competitive during the Australia's first leg of the tour. That I became aware that our type was needed of music, as ZZ Top was the only one doing it. Everyone else sounded aggressive, similar to the Police, and let me just state that Blackmore's rock music makes you loathe the Police. Have to be strong, heavy, and loaded with. He witnessed the Police's excellent guitar performance, combining pop rock with reggae as a symbol that the moving industry had become softer away from the high-energy type. He promoted technically challenging music. Bands that adhered to the Police's rock's raw energy was absent from the sound. Shouldn't Blackmore's remarks have merely a critique of the music of the Cops? They reflected a more general rock's generational division. By the late, hard rock and heavy metal in the 1970s were starting to contend with the new wave of punk as well as the new pop rock sound, while Grammys were being won by the Cops and taking the charts by storm with their sleek hits like Every Breath that are suitable for radio. You take a bottle with a message. Blackmore continued to be committed to he had a heavier, more complex style. Pioneered. It is important to remember that the sound of the Police was a sharp change from Blackmore's favorite music, as he centered on quick, complex guitar solos as the Police pushed into the heavy riffs, rhythms with a groove that are reggae-influenced rhythms, and the high-pitched melodies of Sting voices. Their songs had a moody quality and appealing, yet it lacked the raw violence or technical prowess that outlined Blackmore's strategy. In spite of his intense emotions, the success of the Police was unquestionably. They emerged as one of the bands that were best-selling at the time and departed an enduring influence on rock music, impacting innumerable artists even after their split in 1986. Yet, Blackmore's songs symbolized all that he didn't want rock to turn into. The rolling Ritchie Blackmore of the Stones has never been one to keep his thoughts to himself, and when regarding the Rolling Stones, the critique was especially scathing, yet considered by many to be among the best. The Stones, one of the greatest rock bands ever, never triumphed over the Deep Purple and Rainbow guitarists in the 70s. Blackmore wasn't very patient with bands. He thought it was unimaginative, and among them were the Rolling Stones. Largest offenders. In an interview from 1978, Blackmore in Trouser Press didn't, when questioned about his thoughts about a few of the most well-known rock stars, he publicly disregarded the Beatles, however, In the case of the Rolling Stones, critique was especially pointed, even though he admitted that they were thoroughly examined and have a strong rhythmic foundations, which he eventually wrote off. Not as much as a band that took too much inspiration from Chuck Berry's I wasn't really getting off on the playbook. People like The Who and the Beatles, all the Stones, that singing group, I thought they were fools. It was only a Chuck Berry is riffed by Nick from Chuck Berry. Was alright, occasionally, I'm frank, but I can't find time for the Stones. Observe the reasons for their regard, and the rhythms are excellent and consistent. Record, I admire them, but I dislike rock music, according to Blackmore, was about inventiveness and musicality in his own compositions, and Rainbow and Deep Purple pushed the hard rock boundaries that emphasize intricate songs with virtuosity on the guitar, a combination of classical music and solos on the other hand. Heavy rock influences the foundation of the Rolling Stones sound was rock with a blues foundation and basic but powerful riff-driven tunes, but their approach brought them hordes of admirers and a legendary standing in the history of rock. Blackmore believed they lacked originality. Over-reliance on blues formations instead of creating something new. His main grievance against the Stones was their extensive use of Chuck Berry, one of the pioneers of rock and roll, demonstrates Berry's trademark guitar licks. These rhythms served as a basis for several early rock groups, such as the Stones. He frequently used his aesthetic and, according to Blackmore, their music depending on Berry's riffs, which created the among Stones' unoriginal qualities, he discovered unsuitable in a genre that he believes this criticism should constantly be developing. Wasn't wholly baseless. The Rolling Stones freely admitted their obligation to artists from the blues and early rock and roll, and they performed many of Berry's songs. Blues legends like Muddy Waters, but a lot of people would contend that the Stones used those inspirations to create them. Their own improvement and development of the blues rock recipe in a manner that influenced for generations rock music. Even though he himself doesn't enjoy the Blackmore of the Rolling Stones did give them, he acknowledged their flawless rhythmic sense and their ability to create consistent, well-documented tracks. But even that was insufficient to encourage him to appreciate their music, while others praised the Stones for their unadulterated influence, vitality, and a spirit of rebellion. Blackmore was not impressed. Ritchie Blackmore of Zeppelin had a complex relationship with Led Zeppelin as he restrained Jimmy Page's esteem as a guitarist. The band was not as well liked as a whole. Blackmore often spoke in annoyance that Led Zeppelin was given greater recognition than Deep Purple for leading the way in heavy metal and hard rock, and according to him, both bands were promoting rock music that is simultaneously heavier. However, Zeppelin unjustly received the most of the acknowledgement, and Blackmore didn't back down from interviews. From expressing his doubts regarding Led Zeppelin's uniqueness, although a lot of admirers and detractors celebrated them as the Blackmore's hard rock architects thought they were just repackaging noises that had already been investigated. He believed that their music was mostly based on repurposed blues riffs, which many critics of Zeppelin have also noted throughout the years. I have never been a huge Zeppelin fan. Enjoy some of their actions, but it was mostly just repurposed blues. Similar actions were being taken by Deep Purple simultaneously, but they managed to get all Blackmore's perspective on the credit. The contributions of Deep Purple to heavy rock was frequently disregarded by both bands. Appeared around Deep Purple's time. Led Zeppelin in 1969 and in 1968, but often, Zeppelin was positioned as the quintessential hard rock group of the time. This was very annoying for Blackmore, taking into account Deep Purple's innovative compositions and songs such as Speed Times King and Child, which included combining classical influences, complex guitar playing, and strong vocals. These components would eventually turn into characteristics of heavy metal, but Led Zeppelin was frequently given credit for with establishing the Blackmore's dissatisfaction with the genre was also based on the distinctions between the two bands' musical philosophies. While Led Zeppelin combined rock, blues, and folk, Deep has a style that is frequently spontaneous. Purple tended to be more regimented. hard rock with a classical influence specifically. Blackmore was a very exacting guitarist who requested level of intricacy and precision in Zeppelin's more relaxed blues-based. His taste wasn't always in line with style. The strain was increased by the reality that the two bands frequently found themselves in contrasted with one another in the media. Zeppelin's Abundant Love and intimate Black Night by Purple was released in the same year, 1969, both of which had powerful riffs that would turn into rock music mainstays, whereas both bands were the first to use loud, riff-driven, the bigger sound of Zeppelin's 1970s than a life, along with their powerful contact with the media, frequently presented them as the more. Blackmore's groundbreaking deed wasn't the only one in his critique. Several musicians have highlighted Zeppelin's propensity to take inspiration from blues greats like Willie Muddy Waters and Dixon, don't always providing due credit, but led the power of Zeppelin to change these influences to create something fresh and strong, solidified their position as one of the most influential bands in rock. Significant in spite of Blackmore's, he never rejected Zeppelin's complaints. Possessed talent and respected. Jimmy Page was sincere as a guitarist, and he agreed that Zeppelin possessed some wonderful times, but he was unable to beyond the notion that his own group, Deep Purple, was equally important, if not more so, especially when forming the hard rock landscape, but got much less acknowledgement decades later. The competition between Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin is still a popular subject among rock aficionados. Zeppelin's reputation as one of the best rock bands ever are the indisputable contributions of Deep Purple to the genre have increased acknowledgement for Blackmore over time, but the disparity in credit was constantly a source of pain, and his criticisms of Zeppelin expressed his annoyance with how history decided to commemorate the rock's pioneers. U2, as a well-known guitarist for his technological expertise and complex, Blackmore has publicly disregarded solos. The Edge is your lead guitarist, critiquing his understated playing style and a strong dependence on effects, in contrast to Blackmore, who established his name on classical influences and virtuosity. The Edge adopted a different strategy, preferring delays and ambient textures effects and a straightforward but powerful chord advancements for Blackmore. However, this simplified approach was not up to par with what he regarded as authentic musicianship in. Blackmore has been open in interviews regarding his lack of gratitude for music on YouTube, especially when it comes to his guitar technique. He said, "I don't understand U2. The playing the guitar is just a series of echoes. It's all smoke and mirrors and effects. A great guitarist, in Blackmore's opinion, is someone who can hold an audience's attention with unwavering talent and without depending on layers of effects or studio techniques." His own music in Deep Purple, as well as technical mastery, was what defined Rainbow. Incredibly quick sprints and a combination of hard rock, blues, and classical elements. In contrast, the EDG's method, mostly centered on setting the mood via reverb and delay, appeared excessively. The Edge is straightforward, yet it's generally considered a trailblazer in his own fashion. In particular, his use of delay was beneficial. Describe the turning sound that is U2's hallmark. Ordinarily simple riffs into tracks of enormous anthemic soundscapes like with Where the Streets Are Nameless with or Sunday Bloody Sunday. Without you demonstrate his capacity to evoke strong feelings, depth, using a comparatively small number of notes instead of depending on speed or intricacy. The foundation of Edge's sound was layering and atmosphere, a method that turned into extremely significant in rock music. But for Blackmore, a graduate of the school of guitarists who appreciate technical expertise above all else, this type of his performance was lackluster. He has always acclaimed performers who push the boundaries of their tools, whether they're the sophisticated blend of Deep's classical rock, The Highway Star by Purple, or the neo-Baroque blooms at the Gates of Babylon. Rainbow. The Edge's style, however, is about repetition of constraint and the use of technology as a continuation of the tool or strategy that doesn't conform to Blackmore's explanation of excellent guitar playing. Of course, additionally, Blackmore's critiques of the Edge show a wider split in the rock World A argument has been going on for a while. Between rock that is driven by musicianship and technical proficiency is crucial, and more minimalist methods that are mood-based and where texture and sensation are more important than intricate solos. You have always been a part of the latter camp, writing catchy songs emotionally as opposed to making an impression with. Interestingly, Blackmore's virtuosity perspectives on playing the guitar have changed a little during the years after departing hard rock in the middle of the 1990s to emphasize folk and Renaissance music. He has accepted Blackmore's Night as a softer, more lyrical style, but he contempt for heavily emphasized minimalism. Effects Kiss's playing has stayed steady. Among the numerous bands he has disapproved of, Kiss has a special place in people's hearts. Add to his list of actions that he just lacks respect. Kiss is among the most successful, yet and well-known rock bands throughout history because of their explosive stage personalities that are larger than life. Blackmore has little anthemic hits. Respect for their musical abilities. To him, their dependence on image and drama greatly beyond their capacity to their instruments are played. In one of his most disparaging comments on the band, Blackmore once joked, "They should devote more time to mastering the game. Their tools and less time spent on makeup." For this comment is excellent. Captures Blackmore's contempt for what he perceived as a dearth of authentic musicianship. Kiss's guitarist is renowned for his technical proficiency in intricate solos and profound knowledge of musical theory. Above all, Blackmore cherished musicianship. Otherwise, he performs in Deep Purple and Rainbow was expressive and complex, combining strong rock, blues, and classical influences to create something very original. He believes that a band should be able to endure, based only on their playing ability, without requiring ornate costumes, blood-spitting, or fire-breathing. Kiss, however, turned into a theatrical performance, renowned specifically due to their extravagant stage persona. Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, Paul Stanley, and Peter Criss was more than just a musician. Each character has a unique signature. Makeup and image, they established a brand that went beyond just selling songs. Anything from action figures to lunchboxes, which makes them among the most rock acts that have achieved commercial success. For purists like Blackmore, however, this strategy was a cheapening of best rock songs. To be honest, Kiss's The Topic of Musicianship has generated controversy with both fans and critics. Although their unquestionably songs are catchy and full of, they've never been recognized for their energy, technical intricacy, or instrumental. Rock and Roll and Other Virtuoso songs, All Love Gun and Night, Detroit Rock City, are simple rock choruses with riffs created to appeal to a wide audience. The band's early albums had comparatively straightforward guitar playing, and even their lead, Ace Frehley, a guitarist, was never regarded as one of the top players of. Blackmore's critique of Kiss during that time represents a wider split in rock as well. Music between groups that concentrate on musicality and those who place a high value on entertainment, such as Deep Purple, had a reputation for having excellent musicianship. With every participant, whether it was John Lord's keyboard, which has a classical influence, Ian Pack's lightning-fast solos, or adding a great degree of talent to drumming, Blackmore's own guitar compositions was frequently virtuoso in combining quick runs with classical and bluesy bending. Flaming Kiss's music, however, was made